everybody, and welcome to the RecNet Roundtable. We are on our episode 4. We are going to be doing our reflections of the conference, our RCRA RecNet National Conference, and we have a wonderful panel with us today. My name is Annie Pillick, and I'll be your host today. And joining us, we have Scott Rood, Sally Evans, and Josh Carroll, all former RCRA RecNet board members over the years, and they're going to share with us some of their past stories, their connections to planning the conferences, and their personal experiences over the years of just being an attendee and experiencing other people's conferences. So we're going to jump right into it, and I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves. So I'd love to start with Scott Rood. If you want to tell everybody about your connection with the association and how we can get to know you.
Hi, Annie. Thank you so much, and thank you for putting this together. So I am Scott Rood. I'm an associate professor of hospitality and tourism management at Grand Valley State University in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And my first experience with RCRA was going to the Atlantis Resort in 2007. And over the years, I've had a number of board positions. Quite frankly, I've won a number of awards from the association. And I just hard to believe that it's been this many years, but it's been a great experience for me.
Well, they say time flies when you're having fun, Scott. So next on our panel, we have Sally Evans, who's been a part of the association for quite some time as well.
Well, hello, everyone. As Annie said, I've been a member of the association for quite some time. Actually, I'm going to admit it flat out, that I was actually part of the last conference that was held in January in 1987. Yeah, so it's been a few years. Stouffer Pine Isle Resort in Georgia, we've gone back to since then with a new name for that resort and so forth. So it's been a while since I've been a member of this extremely influential organization, and I'm very blessed to be a part of it. So thank you for inviting me, and I appreciate you organizing all of it, Annie.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Sally. And last but certainly not least, we have another educator, Mr. Josh Carroll. Welcome, Josh.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Annie, for putting this together. I guess I'm a relative newcomer, with my first conference being 2013, which is 12 years ago. But compared to the other folks, I'm more on the newer side of things. I am a professor of recreation, parks, and tourism at Radford University.
Well, welcome everybody. The National Conference is a members annual conference that we have that is a pinnacle part of the membership. It's something that all members really look forward to. Our association, for those that don't know, was established in 1981. And I believe, and Sally and Scott, you may have to correct me on this, the very first conference was at Fripp Island. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. I almost said Amelia, but I feel like that's where the second conference was. So, all right, I'm almost there. Or Kiowa. Kiowa was the second conference, I think. Yeah. So we've had over 40 years of conferences. One year we did not have a conference. Instead, we had a summit. Unfortunately, the location had been devastated by hurricane, but 50 or so of the members came together that year to still put our heads together with a 5-year plan moving forward, but also still connect, which is one of the most valuable things about our conferences, the connections and the friendships and the networking that we've all established throughout the years. So I love to talk about all of that. So I want to start with us talking about different successes, challenges, and memorable moments that we've had from different conferences over the years from your 3 perspectives. And what was your first experience like, and how did it impact you? So I'm going to go to Sally on this one, because you had a really cool, you were part of the association in the 80s, which was probably super fun, super lively, and I know that the volume of members was really high at the time. So I'd love to know about your first couple conferences and how you felt.
Oh, well, thanks for asking, Annie. I was truly blessed and excited. I actually worked on Norwegian Cruise Lines when I pitched to my boss's shoreside and said, I really think we need to be a part of this organization, because I had heard about it when I did my internship at Kiowa. And I thought, this is where we're going to find really good qualified people to come out here and work on the cruise lines. And this is really important. So lo and behold, they sent me to it. And my first conference was so impactful. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity to go and be a part of it, because I truly was welcomed into the conference by all the other professionals, all the students that were there. It was a massive organization at the time. So there were tons of people there from all over the country, and they were so excited. And it was the first time I'd ever joined a group of like-minded people.
Yeah.
Recreation was just beginning and, getting to be popular at that point, and resorts were really starting to invest in having recreation directors and building this industry that we have now. And they were so encouraging and welcoming. And, I remember Jean Baer doing the incoming president's speech, and she, who was the director of recreation at South Seas Plantation at the time, which was a huge #1 resort in the community, in the country. And she was also, believe it or not, a past professional log roller. And her speech was so impactful that I can tell you right now, I remember her talking about how we as a community, as a network of professionals, had the ability to not be just, one log or one pencil, and how easy it is to break one of us.
Yeah.
But when we were a community and we were all together, and there were a bunch of pencils all together, or logs, as she put it from her log rolling, you can't break a bunch of us, but we're so much stronger together. And how impactful that was on me at that time. And sitting at the banquet and listening to Andy Holdnack talk about, giving out these awards and doing the whole induction of the new board of directors, and how emotional I got. And I
Yeah.
thought, gosh, I don't even know these people truly. And yet I'm so touched by how deeply these people believe in what it is that we do and where we're going. So obviously very impactful 38 years later, that I can tell you to the day what I felt that at that point. So
And you're
loved it.
still, yeah, and I love because when I met you probably 20 years ago, like you still are coming to conference every year, and you're still engaged, and you're still helping, and you're still advising all of us. And I just value that, and I appreciate you. And what was so cool about meeting you two over the years was, and learning, from Heidi Jewett, my old boss, who had been a part of the association in the 90s, was just how groundbreaking. Like, you don't realize, working in a resort now, sometimes the history and like how much it has evolved over the years, and just how many associations like our own have really helped the industry grow, and also just expand, and also support. Like, you do feel like you're on an island sometimes at your own property, and when you're starting off as a young person, you don't realize how many other people feel like you in all these places. But then you come to the conference, and you're just like, your head just bursts. And the time that you were involved, there was no major internet. Like, we had a book, right? Debbie always talks about the book. You've had a list, and you flip through it, and you found people that way, and you picked up a phone. Obviously now we have LinkedIn, you can make different connections that way, but there's really just something special about the conference and meeting everybody in person, and hearing them share their stories, and listening to those award stories. And I had a very similar feeling, where I think I was 23, 24 years old when I went to my first conference that Heidi brought me to. And I just remember sitting in the audience during, it could have been the lunch awards, and just how emotional people were getting for the students, because usually the student awards and the educator awards are at that one. And I was so confused, because I had no idea how big and impactful what we were doing across the country was. And I was like, I really have a lot of learning to do. Like, because you're in your bubble, you don't realize what the bigger picture is at the time, And it was very, that's where I felt like I met my people too. Like, you have your community at your property, hopefully you have a positive connection, but then you meet all these other people, and you're like, wow, these are a group of very much like-minded individuals who are so funny, so exciting, so inspiring. And you leave there just like on a high because you just had the most wonderful 2 to 3 days that, experience over time. And it was really interesting. So,
Well,
um,
if I can add
yeah,
one more thing, I said, you know, we as an association have in our membership the true pillar people of this entire industry. You know, we have them. They're here. They're a part of us. They're the ones who have laid that foundation and set us all up to continue to build and encourage participation and network and create that community and grow and lead our industry into the future. You know, we would not be where we are without that foundation of folks that truly continue to be that pillar in all of what our association and our industry includes now. So
I agree. Yeah. I think when, it's never planned, but when any of the three of you or Lisa, Linden or Debbie happen to share a story or just a nugget of insight at a conference when we're all together, and there's just so much noise in our worlds, whether it's personal stresses outside of work, stresses at work, the entire world stresses, but then you hear this little bit of advice, just so clear and so concise, and it's just so hopeful and supportive. I can't tell you how many times where Debbie has shared something and I've just been like, she's right. Like I need to remember that and I need to put myself in check and in perspective. And yeah, they just have a very particular insight that's really kept us rolling a lot over the years. So it's been really cool. Scott or Josh, how has attending conference helped you as educators in your professional life, or your personal life? I mean, you both have very different perspectives than Sally and I, because Scott, you worked in water parks, right? So yeah, we came to conference obviously for different reasons, but you were both bringing students, you were there to do the research symposium, like your perspectives are very different from the kind of experiences I was having.
Well, I did. I ran a water park for 16 years, and then I ran a multi-unit laser tag business
I
for
didn't
a
know
number
that.
Laser Quest.
That's cool.
Yeah. When I went to, I just want to talk about that first conference. When I
Yeah,
went there in 2007, by happen chance, I met a colleague there from a university less than an hour away from me. And we met each other at the RCRA conference in the Bahamas.
that's
But that,
awesome.
but that's not the most impactful part of that first conference. The most impactful part is I went to Bruce Bolivar and I said, what a great opportunity this is for educators to come and present, but you really ought to make more of this research symposium. And Bruce's response to me is, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think you're the one that should make that happen.
I can hear him saying that.
And and when you ask me how it's helped, I think over these years, having this great network of educators and having the opportunity to work with many of them in the 14 years that we published the Journal of Tourism Insights on behalf of the association, so I met these great educators at the conference. We heard some really good presentations. Josh was an editor and both an author within that Journal of Tourism Insights. And I just want to throw in right here that I did a little bit of research yesterday. And from 2008, rather from 2007 up to 2024, there have been 49 different universities represented by educators who either attended the conference and or presented at the conference.
That's awesome.
that's
That's
awesome.
definitely that's a much bigger number, and that's great. That's awesome.
Nice. Can I go?
Absolutely.
I echoing, what Scott said, my first conference was 2013. I was brand new at Radford University. And my boss had been involved, Ed Udd, I guess had been involved in RCRA in the past, or somehow he knew about them. And within like 2 weeks of being here, he said, you got to look at this organization. And so I looked them up. Scott was the gatekeeper for the research symposium. The deadline was way past because, you know, and I sheepishly emailed Scott and said, I'm a brand new professor at Radford. My boss recommended I look up the organization. I do have some research that I had just completed at the University of New Hampshire right before I moved down here that I had done nothing with yet. And it's totally a line of kind of the theme that year for the research thing. And is there any way that, and he wrote back, if you can get me an abstract tonight, that's what
And
he
you
said.
did.
And I did. And it got accepted. And I went down to that conference. It was Amelia, 2013. And I what was huge for me was, like we've all said, the people were so welcoming. I felt like just instantly connected with almost everyone I met. And then, you know, I presented my piece and the audience was wonderfully welcoming. It was not intimidating, which was great. And then the huge clincher for me was Jesse Decker was like, you have to see what we do for I didn't bring any students. I didn't even know the student part. And she's like, you have to sit in and see what they do with the whole job fair and all that. And I saw, you know, all the properties promoting themselves, and then they go next door and they have all these opportunities for students to meet and share resumes. And I came back from the conference and I said, we have to bring students to this conference. And so, you know, I think for me, it's twofold. It's like, you know, connection with people and all the RCRA people, and then also the educators and the symposium. I think it's a nice, comfortable place to present work. And then bringing students and watching it explode their opportunities is just super cool. So it's like, you know, I always tell students, in my hands down, this is the best benefits for your time is this conference out of anyone I've ever seen. So, I mean, that's what I would say.
Yeah, the job fair, I mean, it brings its own unique element to the conference. So people that are coming to the conference for as a professional to hire for whether it's full-time or summer interns, it's like its whole other energy. And I'm sure the students are equally as nervous. You know, like I for many years was given permission to attend conference because of the fact that I was going to be hiring at the conference. Otherwise, I don't know if they would have let me go. But when you go, I mean, you're at the time in the early 2000s when I was going every year, you know, there were like 30 other properties, if not more, having a job fair table. So you're like trying to edge yourself out and understand. And yes, Al, yeah. And
So,
yeah, no, it's okay, Scott, go.
yeah, well, I just want to say that because I have all those years as a practitioner, I attended the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. I was on the board for a year of the World Water Park Association. When I got into academia, I went to ICRE. And by far, what really impressed me straight on with my first visit at RCRA is that it was a welcoming community for all constituencies. The students, the professors, the vendors, the practitioners, it's symbiotic. They all wanted to be together. They needed to be together. And I'd never seen that welcoming environment for students in any of the other professional associations that I had been to prior or since.
Yeah, I agree. I think symbiotic is like the right word because every section of our membership is reliant on another section. And, you know, the vendors are there for the professionals and potentially some of the students if they want to bring stuff back, but the students are there for the professionals. Hopefully they're getting, you know, connections for future hiring internships. But the professionals are also going for the students because they have to bring back staff, but plus new ideas and all the sessions and reinvigorating. And it's just this whole and we're relying on you as educators to prepare the students for the world and prepare them to come to our resorts or campgrounds or cruise ships or whatever. But yeah, it's very interesting. When one section starts to get a little smaller, it makes all the other membership segments a little nervous. So, but yeah, I mean, the job fair, it's really cool. I mean, getting up there and listening to how other properties present themselves and what they're offering is very educational. So just those 30 seconds that you're permitted or 1 minute that you're permitted to share. And then when you get in this space too, just how everybody presents themselves, what they're offering, what they're looking for. I always loved before we opened walking around to everybody's tables and just checking in with them. I thought that was always really helpful for me just to, it's like a litmus is where I'm at. And I'm a mountain property, so it's always really fun to learn about what the southern properties were doing in Florida or South Carolina. And then just the job fair itself. I mean, I've had job fairs where you're standing for like 2 hours and you're just talking the entire time because there's so many kids and you're just excited and you're trying to like
That's my
make
voice
connections.
doing it.
Yeah, and you're making these connections and you can see they're nervous. So you're trying to make them more comfortable because it's a learning experience for them. And then some years, we had the interviews, which are always really fun and figuring that whole process out. So I know that that was always something that I look forward to because it was really important that I was able to bring back future staff because this was a higher caliber of staff. These kids are going to school for it. They want it. They're interested in the field. So it was a big deal for us to get interns from our area at the time because they stood out on property as a cut above other kids who just might, nothing wrong with having just a summer job, but they really had a little bit more interest in the field and wanted that. Can I come to meetings with you? Can I see what your world is like? How do you do budgets? Like there was just more of a excitement to it. So I always like
I will
that part of it.
also, if I can also add beyond just the job fair, it's the networking and the jobs that even the professionals are getting because of the connections within our CRA, and I will say, coming into it from the cruise lines, upon leaving those cruise lines, it was Jean Bear who introduced me to the folks at Give Kids the World. That's how I got my job with Give Kids the World. It was Meg McElroy that helped me with an in to get into Starwood and Marriott. And it was Michelle Kithcart and Belinda Tharp who led me right into Latitude Margaritaville and being able to work, at a 55 and better community. So it's not just the job fair itself that was doing it, it was the jobs beyond
Yep.
there. And as you said, as the students are coming in, they're passionate about our industry. They're excited to see what's out there, and they're so engaged and motivated. They want to be sitting in your chair as soon as they possibly can. They don't want to wait. They want to get right to it and be there. So how exciting is that to be able to say to your bosses, I brought this intern in and look what they're capable of. And now they're going to move into the supervisor position. And now they're going to create the next big Earth Day event. Let me share Happy Earth Day to everyone, that's out there. They may be the ones that are creating that next Earth Day event for their property, resort, campground, community membership. It's all driven by that network that we have in the community, and it starts with attending one of those national conferences. That's where you're going to make those connections deeper than you could ever make in anything that's viral.
So true. I love coming back to conference and seeing professionals bring the interns that attended last year at their and then you see them, oh, you stayed at Nemacolin, and that's really cool, and you're moving up, now you're a supervisor. Like I love seeing the growth that happens, or if they were at someone else's property but then they got hired somewhere else. Like it's always interesting to see that, and they're establishing themselves and blossoming in that way. It's pretty cool. So how do you, from all of your experiences, what would you say to someone who's thinking about attending the conference for the first time? Anybody can answer.
Can I go first? And then unfortunately, I do have to run.
Yeah.
But that, from my perspective for students, if they were thinking about it. I mean, I always encourage them, and through the years, our university, I made a case for the value of it to our students. The first few years, I put together spreadsheets of how many interviews students got, how many offers they got, la. The dean asked me to do that to show how the value, you know, she said, can you quantify it? So our university is fortunate in that, and our students are, that we do have some money set aside for a conference every year based on that, which is really cool. It doesn't entirely pay their way, but it helps significantly. So I always tell my students, you know, if it's students that I'm talking about, I always say, you know, definitely, as far as I can tell, do it. The benefits are, like I said, you know, with the connections, and like Sally said, not just the job fair, but the connections. And sometimes you have, you know, you have I've had this happen where a student comes back and they have 3 offers, and he or she decides to take offer A for one reason or another, but then B and C, I've said, when you respond to B and C, you know, politely and thank them, but ask if you could recommend another student. Now, I've had students in the classroom, and we've been like, that would be good for you though, you know,
Oh, I love
so,
that.
yeah, so we've had, you know, we've had some really great successes, and working that way with it. And then, you know, in the end, all parties are happy, hopefully. And I don't know, I just think it's great. I think it's really hard to beat as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome. Well, Josh, thanks for the time that you were able to spare. I know you're in the midst of
thank
end
you.
of your semester, and we appreciate all your time that you've dedicated on the board too over the years. So keep it up.
Cool. Great
Yeah.
seeing you guys. Namaste.
Bye, Josh.
Bye, Josh.
Okay. So for you two, I mean, what would you recommend if you had someone in front of you? What would you say to them if as a potential first time attendee? So.
Go ahead, Scott.
All right, my canned response is come by yourself and try us out. If you've been an educator and you've been in this academic world, this is not going to be a conference like anything that you've ever experienced. The camaraderie, well, let's just face it, you all are fun people. And because you know we teach it, but you guys live it. And because you're fun people, sometimes it's a little it's a different experience for educators than the stuffed shirt conferences that they go to. And there have been a couple of times over the years where they've scratched their heads during the conference and come to me and, you know, is this really as it appears to be? Yeah, it's really as it appears to be. But what we're really looking for is we're looking for the professors that not only want to advance their careers, but they're committed to their students. Because as you've all been saying, the benefits to the students as a stepping stone it's incredible. They don't realize just how great of a benefit it is. And Sally can echo. How many of you, Sally? How many of your peers owe every job you've had to a connection that you made in RCRA?
It's incredible. And honestly, when I was preparing for all this, I was thinking back to the benefits of being there. And as I said a minute ago, it's the connections, it's the networking, it's the community, it's that camaraderie that we have. But you know, I thought back to Howard U. Bell, who was a professor, and he is literally who inspired our Lifetime Achievement Award. That is named after him. And I remember his presidential speech when he was up there at the podium, and he actually used "Oh, the Places You'll Go" as the theme behind his speech. And you know, for him, he was highlighting how each individual and us collectively, how much what we do on a daily basis impacts those around us, not just our team members, but the larger whole of the company that we work for, how we impact them, how we impact our guests, our owners, our visitors, our passengers, whatever it happens to be that you call those that are staying or coming or participating in your tourism opportunity that you're offering, but how much we impact others' lives, and not always just on a daily or in that moment basis, but sometimes in many cases for the rest of their life. It's a memory that we've helped create for them in their family atmosphere, that lives on forever. And we're blessed that these are the people that we're surrounded by. When you choose to come to one of these conferences, this is the quality of the individual that you're meeting, and getting an opportunity to not only learn from, but be inspired by, and be mentored by. So we're very blessed. The impact is massive.
It is true. Like everybody's just also so down to earth. So sometimes you show up and you're just talking to someone in a pair of jeans and a polo and you're just hanging out, and then you find out all of this history and like everything that they've done, and you're just like, I remember my mind going, and just not taking that for granted. So there was a period of time where when I had my twins, I ended up not working at where I currently am at the Mountain House. And I was a stay-at-home mom and I did like a little side business with party rental stuff. And I remember October coming around and then just that feeling of like seeing all the emails come out and the social media promotions for conference. And I missed it so much. I had so much FOMO because it wasn't like I was at the Mountain House and it was a recession, we couldn't go or something. It was like I was really home and I could just see everybody and just waiting and like, oh, I wonder what this year's theme is. Oh, and I wonder who's going to be able to go this year. And gosh, I hope that who the keynote's going to be, and just missing that for those almost 3 years at home. And when I got back to work in 2015, I remember I think in my interview asking when I was going to get rehired, if that was a consideration, as if that could be included, like when I returned, like, can we please rejoin our survey? Because they stopped going, I think, for a couple years after I left. I don't believe that they were attending. So, and I remember having that conversation with my boss at the time, and he was very open to it, and I was very grateful. But I knew that that was something that we needed. Like, we needed that to stay ahead of certain things. If you really want to stand out and be successful, you have to be around people like that. You have to be around like-minded people who are just super progressive, very thoughtful, very creative. Or you're just not going to, I don't think, hopefully be as successful as you want to be. So yeah, it's almost addicting going to conference. So
I agree.
yeah, yeah. So I want to transition to talking about behind the scenes planning for conference, because attending a conference is one thing, but when you make that choice to run, to volunteer on a committee, or you run to be on the board's one of the major primary responsibilities, is preparing and getting the conference ready for that November month. And there's a lot that goes into conference, a lot of pre-planning that goes on. And each year brings its own unique challenges and successes at the same time. And both of you, since being on the board as well, have had various different experiences. Like I've had my own in the past 6 years. But I'm going to leave it to you. I mean, I can certainly share some of the planning process that we've been going through. But Scott, do you want to give like a little anecdote as to like what is involved in the planning process for a conference at this scale, like a national conference? I know it's been some years, but I know you remember.
Well, I actually made a couple of notes, being an educator. So planning a small scale conference, it's a series of steps where you try to blend these different elements together. You need to blend logistics, you need to blend strategy, you need to blend creativity, and with that, the venue, the date, the budget, the vision, the goals,
Yep.
developing the program, planning the logistics, marketing and promoting it, the vendors and the sponsors, working with the team, realizing that we're all volunteers that are
Yep.
of this team, executing it properly. And I can think of a number of near misses that we've had, but maybe the audience didn't know what a near miss it was. The post-conference wrap up, the evaluation, taking the pulse. How did we do? But honestly, being a past president of the association, staying within budget.
Oh gosh, so hard.
Because if you
Yeah.
don't stay within budget, you jeopardize this experience in the future.
Correct. Yeah, you have to be able to maintain that safety area, or else, like you said, you're not going to have future conferences. Like it's that there's that much of a fine line. You know, I know for many years when Bruce was at the helm and there were different treasurers and stuff, they were very, very careful and made sure we always had a safety nest. But there are years where there's things that happen that you can't do anything about, that you can't predict, but it could impact it. So, you know, and those things, are, and I think I was going to talk about this later, but you know, hurricanes, it's a real thing. A natural disaster can destroy, whether it's affecting the people who are attending and they can't because their airports are closed. It could be a conference that could have been up in Dubuque, Iowa, but unfortunately, a lot of our members at the time could have been from Florida and they can't make the trip. Or we've had the opposite extreme. It's happened actually a couple times, and I was on the board when this happened too, was we had a hurricane destroy a location. It happened more than once in recent times too. In the past 15 years, it's happened to us twice. So it's very sad, and it's depends on like your team too. Like we had a really amazing team on the board, so we were able to pivot. Give a lot of credit to Katrina at the time too, who welcomed us on her property. But it was still very stressful for everybody involved. And yeah,
And Annie, as you mentioned, all these external forces that come out of nowhere that you have no control over, we have to throw the word pandemic in that as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was my first year on the board. So March 2020, we were not at the location of the conference. I think they were still figuring things out. So we actually were in Orlando, and I had remnants of what I thought was pneumonia. I actually got sick in February 2020, not realizing that it was COVID, or whatever it was in February. So I had a lingering cough, and we just kept seeing on the news like more and more evolving, and we met early March. Maybe it was probably a week or two before everything shut down. And it became really evident very quickly that we were not going to be able to have conference that year. So thankfully the location we had permitted us to push it off to the following year. So we were able to maintain our contract with them. That was the first year conference was digital, and I had never been able to be a part of the behind the scenes before. So my first experience on behind the scenes was doing something like this, was on a Zoom call. And I remember being the primary person to navigate everybody in and out of the different rooms and all of that. Yeah, it was wild. And then the following year was our 40th anniversary. And I remember Carrie was president, and we were able to go to Callaway that year. And it was still very nervy. I remember a lot of people were really anxious about meeting, but then it was just funny though, like building up, we were nervous. And then once we got there, I think everybody felt totally happy to be around each other because we hadn't had that joyfulness, a lot of joyfulness, because there's a lot of stress where we were all working about figuring it all out on a daily basis. So yeah, that was very good point, Scott. So, what would you say from your perspectives, was one of the biggest success stories from a past event, whether you were physically a part of it, being on the board, or maybe you just were there as an attendee, something that you thought was really great about a past conference that we've done in the past? I'm going to say past like 4 times. I can hear myself.
It's all good, all good. For me, when I think about the conferences and, the most memorable events, there are so many of them. Every year I could probably pick out a story to tell you about everything from Andy Holdnack in his President's Challenge literally, we're going to run through this home resort and be able to see all the beautiful parts of it and what have you. But it's kind of a race to see, because it's a president's challenge. And then literally us standing at the finish line, waiting and waiting and waiting, and Andy not coming back and not coming back. Come to find out, he drives up on a golf cart with people because he got to chatting and kind of wasn't paying attention and got lost on his own presidential run. Just to get back to the finish line, he had to have a golf cart passing by stop and take him to the finish line. So, you know, we've got so much happening at every year in every conference. The memorable moments happen without your even realizing it. And, you know, I don't know whether I go ahead and continue talking about that. We lost Annie.
Well, perhaps we did, but we're still recording. So go on, Sally.
Oh,
You and I'll chat.
Big Scott, then I'll just keep telling you fun stories of the craziness that has happened that I remember. And as I said, I could pick a story out from every year and tell you, you know, the funny things, you know, that led us to where we are. But you know, Andy Holdnack and his race to the finish line was hilarious. And you know, this is one of your past presidents. This is who we named our gala after, our award banquet gala event. And he's there, and I could not know a humbler leader, uh, you know, who has such an extraordinarily giving soul. And he spent his life teaching, as you have, Scott, you know, to share his knowledge and his impressive background and his skills to so many others through the years. That happens at these conferences. So joining these conferences and being there in person allows you to see those moments for yourself and to experience them.
You know, when you're talking about that, I'm mindful of the years that I've had students there where I received some sort of recognition, and and the I'm a little self-conscious and embarrassed of the attention in front of my students. But on the other hand, it builds a certain amount of credibility with their being there, that their professor who just got this award has brought them. And it really cements the kind of opportunity that they have. And as long as I'm talking about recognition, I think that's one of the things that we do really well. I think that this group of people that are not only a good professional network, but they recognize the accomplishments in one another. And I think two of my memorable experiences are, first, getting up there and presenting Mary Wisdom, and then later, 4 years later, Bruce Bolivar with the Fellowship Award, and then and then being in the audience and being shocked and humbled when I'm the recipient of that fellowship award. We do that so well, and I think that's part of our ethos.
Yeah, no, I agree 1,000% that it's the award side of what you know, Andy didn't even bring it up, but I will say that award concept is something we need to talk about, because as you are someone looking to choose to spend the money or ask your company to spend the money to send you to one of these conferences, I cannot tell you the weight that it brings when you have the opportunity to win an award from this prestigious association and be able to take that back to your property from our side. As you talked about taking it back to, your students seeing you and giving you that credibility, your university looking at that, giving you the opportunity to speak and present, and your research and all the things that you do that allow you the tenures and the growth that you have within your profession of sharing this wonderful knowledge with other students as they're growing and choosing to go in this direction. Our awards allow so much of that to happen. And they're so key to not just appreciating those within our organization who have offered the service, whether you're, just earning the beginning award of Debbie Rignon's Service Award, our first president being given that distinction of having her be the person we named our award for service, because she brought service to this industry like no one else. And if you can walk home with that, it's an incredible feeling to have your own professional co-workers, your professional counterparts say that.
So I just got a message from Annie. She's going to be rejoining us here in a minute. But what you were saying, it's a validation. When I came back from a conference, and my dean had a conversation with me that money's tight, that we might not be able to do this. And wouldn't you know, exactly that day, my dean, who's my boss's boss, got a press release from Lisa Linden on behalf of the awards committee indicating that I had been chosen with the best research presentation. And George came around back in my office and he said, never mind what we said earlier.
I love it. And it's so true. Scott, I cannot tell you how many times my bosses then held our awards for our teams and for the operation that we've run at this resort or that resort up in front of others to say, we have an award-winning leadership team that's here creating memories daily for our guests at our resort. And the pride that I saw our leaders come back from their bosses and saying, well, we just won this prestigious award, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's credibility, it's validation, it drives the ability to get other people to invest in sending you to these conferences. I know when our companies were so short on money that they chose to say, hey, we can't afford to send you. That was when I had to choose to say, this is so important to my profession that I'm going to pay for going to this conference myself. Many people, oh, if the company's going to send me, sure, I'll go. They don't realize the weight that this can bring to their entire future as a professional in this industry, that you can choose to invest. And this is my education that's ongoing, that I pay for every year to go to this conference, to be inspired, to learn new things, to think about the trends that are going on now, but also where's the future of this organization going? What are we going to do to prepare not just our students, as you guys are doing on the teaching level, but other professionals to be prepared for the future of this industry? Are we looking at that increasing focus on sustainability and the responsible tourism practices? Are we looking at the integration of technology, whether it's AI, VR, data analytics in all of our management, not just in the resort as our GM management, but as our departments, structure? And how are we looking at and not only gathering data on what people want and keeping our finger on the pulse, but also on how are we implementing what we've learned from that to better what we offer,
Absolutely. I go to the conference and one of the things I'm thinking about is, okay, as a recreation industry, what are what's innovative? What are the trends? What are the challenges? What are the issues that the industry is confronting? And I think that RCRA and RecNet have always been good at being contemporized and having the pulse of the industry, and then talking about that, dialoguing about that, sharing that with one another.
Yeah, I agree. We talked a minute ago, Annie brought up about the hurricanes, and you brought up about the pandemic. That is something that we need to be teaching in schools as well, and, understanding within those practitioners that are out in the world, the professionals, that we need to focus on, having a greater emphasis on knowing what crisis management is all about, what resilience is, focusing on inclusivity and, accessible recreation and tourism. We need to do all that and keep cross-cultural relations and competencies out there, learning a second language. I don't think Americans understand the validity of it, but also the necessity of understanding and knowing another language and being able to communicate and look at it from a global perspective versus a, just here's my little world that I live in. It's not microscopic anymore. It's huge, and we need to think about all of those things to build that into, as we think about what are we doing to prepare for the next conference. We talked about that earlier, but also what are we doing to prepare ourselves? If we're not in school anymore, how do we continue to learn these things? Well, this is one great way to do it. Go to the national conference that we have, and you're going to hear about that. You're going to hear someone talk about, experience design and personalization. How can we use AI to personalize what it is that we do in this world that we have every day, in whatever yours is, whether it's a campground, whether it's a community association that you're directing and choosing, and it's hundreds of thousands of people that are in your community, and you've got to figure out how to entertain all the different cross-cultural folks that are there. So
Yeah.
for me, I think that's important.
Yeah. Welcome back, Annie.
Well, you guys are a bunch of rock stars. Just keep it rolling. I'm so appreciative. We're having our own little internet situation at my location. But Scott reassured me that not to worry, it was under control.
And you are a little choppy, both in the audio and
Okay.
in the visual. But we've been at it about an hour, and I've enjoyed this one-on conversation with Sally. We've been talking about how the association needs to be innovative, and I think we've just lost her again.
It's okay.
Well, it's been wonderful seeing you. Oh, wait, she's back again now.
Well, Scott, I've learned so much. It's funny with you and Josh and Annie. Everybody has a different perspective. We all look at the conferences and what this association brings to the members, and for those that choose to really get involved and drive in there, I could speak endlessly, about the incredible individuals, who've laid that foundation, and that we stand on today, but also looking at this organization, and that it can and will empower those who not only join the organization but truly engage with this community, and they choose to show up and participate fully and are ready to fill their cup, with all the, it's like a wellspring of wisdom and inspiration and knowledge and connection, that's present at all of our national conferences, and how that lasts beyond the conference and touches your lives. I mean, these are lifetime friends and
Yep.
mentors that I have from being a part of this association, and I could not be more grateful.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I can't tell, I can't say who they are, based on confidentiality, but I can't tell you over the years, the number of recreation professionals that have contacted me, that needed a bit of advice, needed a direction, wanted some help, needed information that they could then marshal for their case that they were making at their property. And so as I think about my discussing my role with educators and students, I've developed some really great relationships with the Steve Dices, with the Rob McGowans, with the professionals in the field over the years.
Yeah, we've truly been blessed.
That's awesome. Well, I feel like a lot of our conversation has already supported some of the things I wanted to discuss, which, talking about why it's important for as a member to attend annually. And sometimes you can't, it's out of our hands, as we mentioned. But new this year for our 2025 conference, we have a lot of really great speakers already lined up. Gary Blyle, our president-elect. For those that don't know, the president-elect's role on the board is to actually find and locate all the session speakers. They have a great board around them that helps support them to be able to do that, but they really take on the brunt of the work. And he has been working tremendously hard, and I'm very proud to say that we have about, I would say 85, 90% of our conference in place already as far as session speakers go. Obviously, that always changes over time. Sometimes people aren't able to make it to November, but I can confidently say right now that he has most of his slots filled, and he has some very interesting people lined up. We do know that's been announced on our website that we have Scott, excuse me, Zach Frangillo from Savannah Bananas. He's director of entertainment. He is the behind the scenes guy. He also is a player on the team on occasion, but he will be our keynote on Sunday. And we're thrilled to have him talk. Very down to earth gentleman, very smart, very creative. He has an incredible perspective on their guest engagement. And if you didn't get to catch the 60 minutes on the Savannah Bananas, definitely look back, because they're doing some incredible things. And I know that he is definitely behind a lot of it with the team that they have, because they have a really forward thinking team and they all work together super well. So excited for him. We have a mid note this year. His name is Tyler Gray, who is currently a consultant, and I know he's working with some cruise ships at the moment. But he's had he also actually was a director of entertainment at one point at the Savannah Bananas. I know he worked at Westgate at one point, so he has a really interesting resume. Very enthusiastic person. I love his topic. He's going to be talking about further on engagement, but a very specific perspective. So I'm excited for that. And then for those of you that were at conference a couple years ago, we had Ben Lorenzen coming back as our end note. Ben was an incredible keynote speaker when he came to us, and he actually was able to do a lot of hands-on programming perspectives. So for those that left that conference that are on that side of the field, I know everybody was furiously writing and taking down all his ideas and his inspiration. And a lot of the feedback over the years since he last spoke was, please bring Ben back. So we were able to do that this year. We're really excited about it. Fun thing is that we were able to find the connection with Zach at the Savannah Bananas because of Ben, because they actually have become friends, and Ben actually had recommended him to speak a few times. So we have been trying to make that happen for a couple years now, but timing and their busy season versus our busy season. So it's all coming together for 2025. And then, yeah, I mean, we're going to be at Kiawah Island. I think this is I'm going to tap into your brain, Scott, but I think this is our third or fourth conference at Kiawah Island.
I think, Sally, I think four.
Four?
Yeah. My first time there was in 2009.
Okay. Very good. And ironically, that was the conference I couldn't go to.
Yeah, it would have been the second conference, and I know we've done it at least twice since I've been a member. So this would be the fourth time at least.
Very good.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know where Kiawah Island is, it's near Charleston. It's about an hour from Charleston, and it is a gorgeous property.
Yeah.
They have incredible golf courses. They have incredible team there. If you haven't met Maggie, when you come to conference, Maggie is going to be showcasing some wonderful, interesting new things that they're doing this year. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, I mean, as far as the planning part of the conference, the board has our mid-year coming up on May 8th. So we'll be down there as a team together, just finalizing details and being hands-on. And we're going to host a special member meetup on the 8th, actually, when we're together there. So we're hopefully many of you can tune into that. And Lisa Jennings actually will be leading us in that one. And I'm really excited about it. So do you two have any last minute words of advice for anybody that's on the fence about whether they want to be a vendor at conference, or if they want to bring students, or how they can convince their GM to let them to come? Any words of advice?
For any of you that aren't familiar that are watching this, I'll tell you that these four people that you've seen today, this wasn't an act. This wasn't a stage. This is how we are. And this is how you're going to find the people at the conference. Genuine, warm, outgoing, and very interested in you and what you can bring to the association, what the association can bring back to you.
That's
I'll just
awesome.
say, just do it. Don't think about it, just do it.
A little Nike sponsorship there. Love it. Well, I appreciate you, the both of you, taking the time to talk to me today, even with our funny little hiccups that we have. I guess this is normal life in the world of recreation, but also just in life in general. So, and of course, thank you to Josh again, who also was able to squeeze in some time for us as he runs around with his students. So for those of you that are interested in learning more about our conference, you can email me directly if you have specific questions at annie.pilek, that's Pilek, at rcra.org. You can also go to our website, which is www.rec-network.org. We have a whole page dedicated to our conference this year, and there's a sneak peek that will be updated soon, but it has a reflection of what we were able to offer last year at conference, but we'll be updating that soon enough for highlighting who are our session speakers for this year. So thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for episode 5, what that will be. We'll keep you posted. Have a great day.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.